And Kathleen McNamee has joined us in studio to look ahead to the new WSL season. But
I don't know if looking ahead is the right word. I want to just ignore the fact that it's happening after last night and Arsenal in the Champions League.
There was a couple of WSL teams in action. Manchester City had no problems in Paris, 5-0 win.
Yep. Miedema getting her first goal for Man City, which is...
Yeah, how did that look for you now?
I'm still not used to seeing her in a City jersey at all. Like, there was a couple of times during the pre-season where she was away, and I think they were down in Australia, and I saw a picture of her sitting with Chloe Kelly and Lauren Hemp, and I was like,
it's so strange.
It's so strange. And I was like, that's weird. Like, England aren't in camp, thinking, because she goes out with Beth Mead, I was like, oh, she must be there with Beth Mead or something. Like, why is she there? And then I was like, oh wait, no. She's a City player now, Kathleen.
Yeah.
She's the only Arsenal player that I actually have on the back of a jersey, men or women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And where's the jersey now? Is it
ruffled up in the bottom of my closet somewhere? I find it too hard to look at.
Do you think
I know, I appreciate what she did for the club.
Yeah, and I'm sure if she does score against Arsenal, she'll be respectful.
I think so. Well, she doesn't really celebrate goals anyways, so it would be...
She scores so many of them.
Yeah, it would be very unusual for her if she did celebrate in any sort of way. Like, it would be a bit of a fingers up to the club, which she would potentially be entitled to do with the way that her whole treatment was at the end there and the way she was let go. But they're going to be frightening. Bunny Shaw wasn't playing last night because City didn't get her visa sorted in time, but the two of them, if you can find a way to make that work in a team, I mean, we're going to see records broken all over the place this season.
Yeah, well, I remember when that draw was made, we were looking at that going, oh, City against Paris, you know,
that could be tricky.
That could be tricky. Look what happened to Arsenal. But
look what's happening to Arsenal again.
So what did happen to Arsenal? Again, when that draw was made, Häcken of Sweden, you know, we're thinking that's a tough draw. And the draw, like, it's very hard to get into the group stage.
Yeah, well, I remember coming into the office and you asking me what I thought about that draw, and I said not the worst, but also I'm still concerned. And I think that's fair enough based off what Arsenal did last season in the Champions League. And you look at a team like Häcken, like they knocked out PSG last year. They're no pushover whatsoever, and we saw that last night. And I think what concerned me about last night was you were seeing similar problems that we've seen Arsenal have over the last couple of seasons, is that when they go up against those really tight, compact defences, they don't have the creativity to find the gaps that they need, find the little areas where they can get a goal. Like, fair enough, they did hit the bar twice. Frida Manum as well in the dying moments of the game had a really, really good chance. But bar that, it just wasn't very exciting to watch. You didn't feel like Arsenal were going to break through and hit a couple of goals past them. You had the Häcken goal, which technically Katie McCabe was at fault for. I don't know if she didn't realise that the player was behind her or she just totally misjudged where the pass was. It was a great pass. But if it wasn't McCabe, it could have been anyone else on that team, because there were several moments where Häcken were able to break through the Arsenal defence. And having your opening game against City, knowing how tight the WSL is in that, losing one game, you know, it can totally derail your entire season, especially when it's against one of your main competitors, is going to be concerning, I think, for Arsenal.
And it wasn't a case that Arsenal didn't have the chances, like 17 shots. For them on target.
And they have majority of the possession as well. They just don't know what to do with it when they have it. They're too passive. And, you know, it did improve a little bit when Manum and Blackstenius and Ford came on. But I don't know, it felt like an evening that was crying out for someone like Miedema who can make those moments. I know we haven't seen as much from her the last while with it, but I think that's just coming back from ACL, and you very much got the impression whenever she was coming to the tail end of last season that she was getting back to that place.
Yeah, and Katie McCabe, I think it's just her position now is left back. There's no, that debate is over in terms of club. That she's not playing anywhere else.
And, you know, she was having some luck in the pre-season with teaming up with Caldente, and they seem to be kind of bringing together a nice partnership. But it'll just be interesting to see, can they bring that onto the pitch for the league as well, because pre-season is very different. You're playing a very different level of opponent, and, you know, at the end of the day, it is a friendly. You want to prove yourself, yes, but you're not going all guns blazing.
Yeah.
Will her position always be left back, do you think, for Ireland? You know, they experiment a little bit and she likes to get forward. And
yeah, I mean, there is an argument that she could get to play up forward a little bit more, but I think with the injuries to the likes of Jess Zhu and stuff, we're probably going to see less of that, because Zhu was a really good outlet for us in that she was creating chances. She was doing a lot of the running. She was making those inroads. Whereas I just don't think with the rest of the team at the place that it is that we have enough supports to like throw Katie up for more forward than we want. I mean, you might see it against a team like Georgia where we should go and we should
There's goals to be had, yeah.
touching wood all around me wherever it is. We should go and we should score lots and lots of goals. Yeah, tickets are actually on sale tomorrow morning if anyone wants to grab them. 10 a.m.
I was behind the goal in Tallaght for that game where they scored the majority of the goals in the second half.
I remember watching it in an apartment in London, and we did a koi gig straight afterwards, and me and Karen were just giddy. It was like we'd been drinking all evening because it was so fun to watch.
Katie scored a penalty, I remember.
Yeah.
But in terms of the WSL, obviously, it's Arsenal don't have time to dwell on what happened last night. They're straight into it this weekend. You mentioned something there about, you can't really drop points against your rivals. I suppose that was the thought process when Emma Hayes was in charge of Chelsea. This is going to be the most interesting thing of the WSL. No Emma Hayes.
It's been really interesting already. Even hearing, I was listening to one of the BBC's football podcasts, and they were chatting about even how different the atmosphere is around the training ground since she left. Someone was saying that they went out to Cobham for just the general pre-season media day. And they were almost all on like tenterhooks, being like, when's Emma going to come into the room? What's she going to say? Da, da, da. And then Sonia Bonpastor turned up and she was really light and airy and chatty. And they were like, oh, this is a totally different atmosphere. Now, you can't really count how much that's going to change in the dressing room because obviously you have a front for the media that you don't have with the team. But there is that kind of sense of the reign of Queen Emma is gone and now there's someone new in there who maybe won't have the same sort of personality and dominating force on the league. I'm really interested to see what she does with Chelsea. I mean, they're so stacked. It's so hard to see how you would perform badly with a team like that. But also, Bonpastor didn't necessarily have the best of relationships with some of her players at Lyon, and that was always Emma Hayes's. I think one of her greatest skills was she was able to handle a team of superstars and make them feel happy if they were sitting on the bench one week, or make them feel happy or make them want to do better and actually get them to be better so that they weren't on the bench or that they were playing more than 60 minutes, whatever it was. So I think that's going to, rather than what she does with the team, I think managing that is going to be the biggest challenge.
That's the biggest thing. That's so true. Because they're stacked, absolutely stacked. So you're thinking on paper, absolutely they have to go on here and win hands down. But yeah, got to keep everyone happy and on the bench. And I do think Emma Hayes, that was something about her, that she had that figurehead about her, that she could get the best out of you, but at the same time, if you were dropped, you kept your head.
Yeah, I think it's going to be City's year.
Yeah.
I think if City don't take their opportunity this year, then it's not going to come.
Well, they've started slowly the last couple of seasons. And look, Emma Hayes conceded the title last season after the Liverpool game. That was it.
Yeah.
And City...
She wouldn't be one for dramatic proclamations.
No, I know. I mean, look, mind games there, obviously. But that's the expectation is that Chelsea, the bare minimum for them is that they have to win the league. And it's about trying to win the Champions League, which was the one thing that Emma Hayes couldn't do.
Yeah, I do wonder if Bonpastor is going to come in and put more focus on the Champions League, since that wasn't the thing that Emma Hayes could do. And coming from a European outfit like Lyon, where like really, I don't know how much the league matters to them, since it is generally themselves and PSG going for it, and more times than not it's Lyon that win. I feel like Europe is going to be where her sights are, so I'll be very curious to see if she does kind of put a little bit more effort into that side of things. But for City, they have Buddy Shaw, record goal scorer, Golden Boot winner. You put Miedema in there. If Gareth Taylor can find out some sort of way to make them work. Jess Park is one of the most exciting players out there at the moment. She got 2 goals last night. She's just gone from strength to strength. Then you have I hate to call them old reliables because they're still in their early 20s, but your Lauren Hemps, your Chloe Kellys, their whole team is stacked as well. And I think with Gareth Taylor, he's struggled in the past to maybe find the positioning for certain players early on in the season, where it feels like going into this season, he doesn't need to do any of that work. He hasn't signed a whole load of players. He hasn't brought in a total change of the guard. It's pretty much all the same. And the one that you'll want to try and slot in is Miedema, and that shouldn't be that difficult, all things considered.
Another player that was signed by Manchester City from an Irish point of view is Tara O'Hanlon. Like, what a learning ground for her to be able to play and train with all these players.
Oh, it's incredible. And, you know, it really goes to show what they think of her. If you look at her injury profile over the last year and a half, it's been awful. She's been so unlucky, but City still wanted to sign her, even though she hadn't played in like a good 6 months at that stage, I think. So it's going to be brilliant for her. She's in their Champions League squad as well, still injured, I think, at the moment, so wasn't on the bench last night. But I'm really hoping, like, I remember talking to Karen about her before, and obviously she played with Peamount, so Karen knows her really well. And Karen saying that from when she was, I mean, she still is a kid, she's still a teenager, but from when she was really young, you knew she was something special. And she said she's the best player she's seen come out of Ireland since Kathleen McCabe. So
Wow.
that's no pressure at all.
No.
But also when you're at one of the best clubs in the world, you know, that's the sort of label people are going to be sticking on you.
Yeah.
You do get that feeling from her, though. I'm sure you spoke to her. Like, she has such a head on her shoulders for how young she is. I think it was last year when she was doing her leaving cert. I was speaking to her and I just was like, how are you doing your leaving cert? I feel like you should be finished college. Like, she backs herself so much and she is such a belief. And there's no surprise that she's playing at the level she's playing now. And I think you need a bit of that if you're going to be stepping up to that level so young.
Definitely. And I think it's something you're really seeing with that younger generation that are coming out of Ireland. You know, you look at the likes of Eva Mangan, who had loads of trials over the summer over in the WSL. Even your Jesus, Izzy Atkinson, all those sort of players. The way they talk about football and the way they think about football is a level above even what some of the older players do, because they've been doing it for so long. They have their means, they have their method, but they're so analytical. They're so into the stats and the performances and, you know, how hard they can push themselves and how hard they can train. And I know we spent a lot of time after the men's window talking about the dire state that Irish football is in, but also there is a real bright spark on that young side. And I think what's really important is that we nurture that in some way. You know, we've stopped the home-based sessions now, and they're going to bring in, well, the plan is to bring in some sort of middle ground between the younger underage sides and the senior squad, because at the moment, if you're done with under 19s, there's a big
limbo, yeah.
there's just a massive gap there, and that's especially for young women and girls, like, that's a really crucial development period for them, because women tend to hit their sporting peak a little bit higher in age than men do. So that period, if we have something in there to make sure that we're developing these players right, and we're not looking and depending on Eileen Gleeson to pull them into the main senior camp straight away, that might not suit some people. For people like Tara Hanlon, Eva Mangan, maybe it's perfect for them, but for other people they might just need that little stopgap. And I think it's really poor from the FAI, considering the fact that we had the World Cup last year, that before they pulled the home-based sessions, that there wasn't something put in place to develop these players. And they haven't. I mean, they've been asked in the couple of press conferences that I've been in around the international team, there doesn't seem to be anything in place yet. So
that was my worry, that as amazing as it was, you were there in Australia, that we wouldn't build on it. This was the time, like, this is when you invest. Like, you have all these players are household names now, and the next generation. Because Stephen McGuinness was in studio with us yesterday from PFA Ireland, and he said, like, there's so many girls playing football now. Like, I have nieces playing football. I've gone to watch them. Sometimes you can't even get referees for the games. The demand is incredible, but you have to obviously give them a pathway.
Completely. And I think that if you capitalise on the fact that, like, the men are a bit rubbish at the moment, but the women are doing really well, like, commercially they're really viable, because it's a bright thing. It's, you can go to the Aviva, actually see a couple of goals, you know, fill out the stadium, have the crack, and it is really, really frustrating that we're still having these conversations a year on. Like, I'm not totally surprised that we are, because I didn't feel like going into the World Cup that there was any sort of long-term plan in place to capitalise on it and to capitalise on the profile that the players were going to get. But now is the best time ever. You know, you've Katie McCabe, one of the figureheads at Arsenal, you've Tyler Toland captaining a side, you know, you've Mustaki and several other Irish players all featuring in the promo for the league this season. You know, Irish players are dominating in the top 2 tiers in England at the moment. And over here, it just doesn't feel like that exists at all, which is unfortunate. And I always say this whenever I talk about it, and I can imagine the YouTube comments being like, "Oh, Kathleen's on talking about the women again." But it you're only shooting yourself in the foot if you don't get involved and if you don't get invested, because it's your team, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think
I'd happily watch Arsenal under 8s play, you know.
But like to say, oh, you know, wasn't the World Cup great? It was, but like, let's have another one. Let's get to the next one. Let's go. Let's qualify for first Euros, and there's a very strong possibility that that does happen. As you said, like the Georgia game, then who knows? We could be playing Wales again.
Yeah, I will be hiding behind my chair for Wales or Slovakia.
Yeah.
If we get that
But
far.
if we qualify for a first Euros, that's 2 major tournaments back to back. And then if you can't build on that, then when will you ever build on it? That's
I
kind
do
of thing.
feel like you do feel that there's young girls wanting to play now. I do think it's had an effect that way.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
Like,
the knock-on effect that way has
going to
been
the-
amazing.
Like the way the journey went from going to games in Tala,
Yeah.
where the crowd was getting bigger and bigger.
To the Aviva
And then,
the
like,
atmosphere.
you know, it got to say, like, the first few games, you'd see groups of young girls waiting for the players after, and they might get a boot or a jersey. Whereas now, like, there's a queue, like,
boys and girls.
yeah, and you're not getting near the players because there's so many fans trying to get to them. So,
Yeah.
no, it's been brilliant. But as I said, if we don't build on it now, when are we ever going to build on it?
And also, we beat one of the top nations in the world
In Páirc Uí Chaoimh,
in
by the
Páirc
way.
Uí Chaoimh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the atmosphere, that was hands down the best atmosphere I've ever heard at a game. It was amazing. So much fun. I mean, everyone was dancing in the stands.
Yeah.
It was just a good vibe.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
scored against England.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
You're not forgetting it.
it's the little things.
yeah, no, absolutely.
That's a
yeah.
big thing.
Yeah.
We didn't
And there
even-
was over, like, I think 800 traveling support to that game, you know.
Yeah.
And people, even in France, like, people went to Metz. It's in the middle of nowhere. But, like, there's that great foundation that's being built now, and they're getting really involved. They're organising meetups before games. It's the Irish Women's Supporters Club. If anyone wants to follow them, they're on all social media. But, like, they're organising get-ups. They're doing fan walks to the stadium. It's a really exciting time to be involved in it. And hopefully, as you say, it'll be Switzerland next summer.
Yeah, and even that actually is a little bit disappointing because
Stadiums are all tiny.
yeah, it's bigger than Switzerland.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if anyone's offended by that.
I don't think
Swiss.
there's a stadium involved that's over 40,000. The
Yeah.
majority of them are somewhere between 12 and 25,
Yeah.
which is tiny.
When you like compare it to what happened in England,
Yeah.
it was unbelievable. In terms of Irish players to look at this season,
Yeah, who excites you? Who are you looking out for?
Well, I would have said Jessu before that very, very unfortunate ACL injury that she got. I was so excited for her. Like, I thought she had been our most creative player, especially in those early games in League A where we were really, really struggling. I thought she was going to be really good. I'd love to see more from some of the younger contingent. So your Izzy Atkinsons, your Abby Larkins. You know, she didn't play a whole lot last season. Obviously made history as the youngest ever Irish player to appear in a major tournament. But I think she probably needed the time to develop a little bit more and mature a little bit more. But I think this season, if we really want to see more from her in a green shirt, she needs to kick on a little bit at club. Tyler Toland as well, I think will be interesting to see how she gets on. And yeah, it's just, it's an exciting time.
yeah, Leanne Kiernan obviously signed the new deal with
Yeah,
Liverpool.
Leanne as well. We had an exclusive interview with her on Koi Gig last week. You can get it in your off the ball feeds talking about her new
Can Liverpool
signing.
close the gap, or is it still going to be the top 3?
I think it's still going to be the top 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, I think it was 9 points last year was the difference between Arsenal and Liverpool. I wouldn't be surprised if that was smaller. I think United are nowhere near competing with Liverpool. One thing that might go against Liverpool is they have quite a small squad this year. So if any sort of injuries may affect them a little bit. But from the sound, from what Leanne was saying last week, it sounds like the camp are really, really happy. They think this is their year to push on and challenge for potential Champions League. So
You're going with City.
Yeah.
You think City are going to win it? So you think City, Chelsea, Arsenal?
yeah.
It's very definitive.
Yeah, and well, I've just thought about it, and having watched quite a bit of Arsenal's pre-season, I'm just not that confident. I think Adavale should go, but I've thought that for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably
He can't in-game manage.
Yeah, this is his last chance to do, really, isn't it?
He doesn't know what to do when everything's going.
What happens if they don't turn that around next week against Hacken?
Then he really, really should go.
Does he even?
Yeah, Arsenal shouldn't be missing out on Champions League qualification 2 years in a row. Even when you look at like what it brings into the club, those big European nights at the Emirates, they're class.
Because they are obviously going to be playing more league games at the Emirates this season.
Yeah. And that's part of what they sell tickets on as well, is having those European nights. No, if Arsenal should be competing at the very, very top level. And I don't think you could see it anything more than abject failure by Adavale to not do it.
All right. Well, Kathleen, on that note.
On that really positive note, I've just fired a bad. But